Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 53 of my story. So I'm eventually settling into the new prison life, and it's becoming my new norm at this point. I went through the whole process of the A&O procedures, and now I moved into a room with 5 other ladies. And basically, it's like a hotel setup. So you have a private restroom that does have a door. You have a little small kitchenette that has 4 cabinets at the top and 2 at the bottom. So everyone gets their own cabinet where you can put your dishes in and whatnot. You also have a locker that's a metal, I would say maybe like 3 foot locker, and they're stacked on top of each other. So if you're in the top bunk, you have a top locker. If you're in the bottom bunk, you have a bottom locker. So these lockers hold our life possessions. Like at this point, I'm starting to realize that everything I own at this point is in this locker. And so it's not really a good feeling. And so I adjust as best as I can. I make very minimal amount of friends within the first year of eventually, I get paperwork in from my attorney. She also emails me and she lets me know that, of course, the court has handed down another ruling in my case. And basically they are upholding the conviction from the original judge out of Miami, Florida. And so I'm not so happy about that. She also has a phone conversation with me over the phone where she basically tells me that she has done just about everything that she can do to help me. So at this point, it's going to be up to me to hire a new attorney or to fight for my case on my own. So, of course, I'm not just going to lay down on this. I go to the law library. I start fighting this case. I start presenting my own arguments. I put in my own appeals. I file my own motion, and I send them into the courts. Maybe I say a few months later, I get a letter in the mail, and it's from the appellate court out of Georgia. Basically, they're saying that I have a very valid argument on my case. So I'm thinking that this is a great, chance for me to get this case back into the courts, in which it is. So I present all the information and evidence that I need to present to the courts. At this point, my attorney is not. This time I received notice that I need a new attorney. However, I can't afford a new attorney at this point. So I'm asking the court to appoint me an attorney. And so they do. Because I'm incarcerated at this point, I cannot afford an attorney. And so they basically go off of what you have on your books, what you're receiving every month. And so they decide that, yes, they would appoint me an attorney to represent me. So eventually, an attorney gets in touch with me. Well, I'm going over this whole process. I'm having to go down to my counselor's office to do these phone calls with my attorney. My attorney is basically telling me at this point he doesn't understand why I received so much time in this. The only thing he can see is that the government wanted to make an example out of somebody. And so I'm basically telling him this is what my original attorney told me, that at this point, the government wanted to make an example. And he was basically saying, well, I think I would have did something different in this case, because as I read through this case, I see there's multiple informants and people who were working with law enforcement. So around this time, I also get word that my sister was working for the federal government at this time, as well as my now ex's baby mom. And so I get word one day that she was on her way, leaving early one morning, heading somewhere, and she's pulled over and she's detained and arrested by the feds. She's now being charged in the same case that we were being charged. So she's now being arrested by the feds and she's being detained at this point. Everything after that is a little sketchy. However, I am in contact with one of his baby moms. And so I end up getting word that he's in there saying, yeah, they're going to take her down, this, and that, and all kind of stuff. Well, around this same time, before all this was going on, one of my sisters who was working for the feds at that time basically told me that there was a lot of stuff going on, where there was officers at one facility going over all our correspondence, reading it, and relaying messages back to her who worked in the feds. And so she already pretty much knew some of this stuff was going on, and that they were basically saying, and this her baby father, is definitely not to be trusted. Like, basically they can see. I'm still waiting to hear what's going to happen to this other person, the cameraman on this case, because around this time, everybody's basically been sentenced. Well, now I'm getting phone calls from my family that these federal agents are out harassing my family members, like going to their houses, asking them, do they know where the rest of the money at, accusing them of being with me, moving large amounts of money. It's like so much drama going on till it's not even funny. So this cameraman, even though he's basically worked as a cooperating witness with the government for all this time, he's still in contact with my cousin. My cousin has been sentenced to 24 months also in federal prison. So he's off doing his time. Well, this time I find out that this cameraman has contacted him and basically has wrote him a letter, and it's apologizing for his involvement, basically saying how the government didn't want him and didn't want me, and he don't know what happened. Well, the truth behind that was that this cameraman, the government had gotten in touch with him and actually told him that he needed to tell myself and my cousin that we needed to contact them. However, we had never heard any of this information. He basically didn't want to be revealed, so he kept this information to himself, and he continued to work with them. And he went on telling lies to outsiders that, well, the government didn't want them. They basically only wanted, my ex, but that we didn't want to cooperate because we were listening to my ex tell us this, and that, which this never, ever, ever, ever happened. At that point in my life, and at that time, if I would have known that the government wanted to talk to me about anything that he was doing, I would have definitely talked to them. Because at the end of the day, he should have never got me involved in anything like this. Like, a man that gets somebody involved in something like this and being as intentional as he was with it deserves to go to prison. And some conversation that I was having when I was in that room that was ice cold right after my arrest with all these agents. And they started asking me, so why I didn't contact them? Did anybody ever come to me and talk to me about any of this that was going on? And I was confused. I didn't know what they were talking about. Well, that was because the whole time they had sent word to this confidential informant for him to reach out to us and tell us that we needed to contact him. However, he didn't, because he